Welcome to Fans First, a sports podcast where your voice matters most. Hosted by Hall of Fame sportscaster Jim Powell. This is the show that puts fans at the heart of the conversation. Whether you're cheering in the stands, screaming at the TV, or debating with friends about the latest trades, Fans First is here to amplify your thoughts, your insights, and your love for the game.
Well, I hope you forgive me on wearing my reading glasses because Steve Burkowski is very successful in many things. One was finding the great lives in the world. And she wrote, of course, this introduction to make sure that they got right. I'm actually making that up. I just wanted to tease Steve Burkowski a little bit. He just celebrated 25 years at the Golf Channel and NBC Sports. He's worked as a play-by-play announcer for college events like NCAA championships, USGA amateur championships. He's excelled as a Golf Central host. He's proven to be an excellent reporter and interviewer for PGA Tour events and major championships. The always versatile Steve Burkowski just finished his second year of play-by-play for college basketball under the NBC Sports umbrella. Steve has secured and cemented the title, and it'll never be stripped from him, of the most spreadable golf commentator under the age of 80 in the world. And we are honored to welcome you to our Fans First podcast. Talk some golf with us and preview the Masters, which will be in full bloom in the first week of April. Almost there.
Always a pleasure, Jim. Good to connect. We have about 3 decades of friendship, mentorship, and colleagues. Ships passing in the night, but thrilled to have a part of this week's edition of Fans First podcast.
Well, we love having you on. And there's a lot to talk about in the golf world. It used to be just a place that I could, on a free afternoon on the weekend, I could lie down on my couch and watch golf for 3 or 4 hours, fall asleep 2 or 3 times, and have a great day. Obviously, the sport has evolved in many, many ways. And most importantly, I feel like the equipment in golf has maybe changed the sport a little bit. Is that accurate, or am I off base with that?
No, that's certainly part of the narrative of this game, Jim, growing in the last 10, 20, 30 years. Probably specifically from my view for the kids, for these younger, talented high school, junior, college golfers. Back in the day, you might have that one behemoth, just powerful looking guy that would hit it 300 yards. Now they all hit it 300 yards. It doesn't matter if they're 5'7", 6'4", $150, 2.25. Technology, I think, aligned with fitness, better nutrition. Back in the day, I'm not going to say they weren't athletes, but they probably go have a steak and a few beers after the round and get ready for the next day. These days, they get there 3 hours early, go through their physio, go see their trainer, and on the back end, they might pound balls for 90 minutes and do it all over again. So I think technology, in part with what I've always sort of called the Tiger effect. This is the Tiger Woods effect a generation later. He made golf cool. He made golf attractive to athletes that never would have contemplated leaving football or baseball or basketball. It was sort of that underlying tone of, you played golf back in the day. Oh, you're one of those. Now it's like, oh, you play golf. You're one of those. I think that's sometimes missed in what Tiger has done to the game of golf in the last 30 years. I mean, you look at him now, even trying to fight through all the injuries. If you just physically looked at him as a specimen, I mean, he's going to be 50 at the end of the year. He still is committed to trying to get bigger, stronger, healthier. So I think your technology point is spot on. And then you add that with all the other layers. Look at the PGA Tour. Again, forget size, but they're mostly fit and they're flexible and they're athletic. And I think that's due in large part to Tiger Woods.
Every once in a while, I'm going to ask you to kind of peek behind the curtain of the golf world, because we just see on television or maybe an occasional tournament we get to. But tell us about Tiger a little bit. I'm curious about his evolution through all he's been through, the ups, the downs. Now he's fighting to stay alive on the tour and all that. Has he evolved a lot? Is he a lot different person now than he was before? How much has he changed?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, those first 10, 15, 20 years, maybe just take it up to about 2008, where Tiger was the dominant player. Probably and arguably the greatest stretch of golf we have ever seen played. And then in '08, he wins at Torrey Pines on a broken leg, goes a decade plus without winning another major because there were a lot of off the course issues that he had to deal with, most specifically to the body failing him, surgeries, the accidents, the incidents. I mean, Tiger Woods' life has been on public display, but it is intriguing because I feel like it was at the Honda maybe 5-6 years ago. It was the first time I interviewed him where, let's call it, I felt like he was approachable. He's still maybe one of the only players that I'll stick a microphone in front of and still get those butterflies, because I've always maintained if you ask Tiger Woods a dumb question, he will not hesitate to give you a dumb answer. Not to embarrass you, but he was kind of matter of fact. And I can't remember the exact timeline with that Honda event, but it was coming back after a surgery, an accident. And I think there was an appreciation in his early 40s that my window is closing. Maybe I have 9 lives and I've used a few of them. But I think that's a poignant question by you because he felt like we were buddies, if you will. And, there's never a line you cross in that professional aspect. But when you interview the same golfer, the same player, decade after decade, you become friendly in a way. And it was the first time I left where I always remember he used my name in the interview. Hey, thanks, Tiger. See you tomorrow. You got it, Steve. And for me, don't ask me why. It's something that's sort of a nod of respect, if you will. We know each other. So I would say in the last 5, 6, 7 years, obviously the win at Augusta National for major championship number 15. That's 6 years ago now. But for his son, Charlie, to be there and to have that image from when he first won hugging his dad to nearly a quarter century later, he's hugging his son. I think it's really come full circle. While you've learned, or at least I have, never doubt Tiger Woods, never say never. This latest setback with the Achilles heel tear. I mean, he's done for the year, barring some magical Aaron Rodgers return. We probably won't see him play on the PGA Tour for the next 4, 6, 8 months, which then opens up a whole nother question of, does he play on the PGA Tour Champions when he's 50? Because you are allowed to take a golf cart. And he said that's been the one thing standing in his way, the actual physical act of walking 72 holes. But I think this side of Tiger, on the back end of his career, he's become a little warmer, a little more approachable. And I think, quite honestly, has endeared himself to a lot of fans that respected him, but maybe didn't admire him as a person outside the ropes because of choices he made, decisions that he brought upon himself. And I think that's what becoming a father really does to you. If you're a sanitation worker or one of the greatest ever play the game, you realize now there's the internet and my kids can Google me and see some of my missteps in the past. And I think first and foremost, being a great father has been paramount for Tiger Woods.
I'm not asking you to become a PR director for the Masters tournament, but a lot of people feel, myself included, that it just has something special about it that I'm not sure any other event on any of the tours can match. Is that accurate? I mean, is the Masters really special like that, or is that just my imagination? And secondly, is the Masters the number one tournament in your mind? I mean, if you held a canvas or a series of pro golfers on the tour, would they all list the Masters number one as that's the one I've never won, I've got to go win that?
Emphatic yes on the first. It is as good of an experience for everyone involved. If you're a player, a patron, watching on your couch at home. And I'd say a strong yes on 70, 80, 90% of the guys on tour would say the Masters is number one on their list. Maybe you get the Open Championship for some international players or Europeans. I've always maintained from my very first visit to Augusta, which was in 1996, courtesy of you giving me a media pass that once was used by Larry Maddox as a stringer for WVOC in Columbia, South Carolina. and I'm 22, 23 years old, calling in reports from the payphone bank behind the old Augusta National Media Center. It means the world to me that started and that I'm able to continue to go decades later. And each and every time I step foot on the grounds of Augusta National Golf Club, it never disappoints. I've maintained that in all the good fortune I've had in golf and other sports. Super Bowl, pick your pinnacle of that particular endeavor. Augusta National is better in person, and TV, while it is amazing, if you ever get the chance to walk the property and see the elevation changes and that everything is green, and when the azaleas pop as it appears the warm weather looks like it might be on schedule, there's nothing like it, Jim. And it's funny because we always hear now a tradition unlike any other, first coined by Jim Nance in 1986, then trademarked by the Masters tournament. And Jim Nance, has been a fixture of those broadcasts for nearly 40 years. I think for the casual fan, it's the beginning of golf. For the diehard, they've been watching for the last 3 months. But as much of the country thaws out, getting their clubs out of the garage, you carve that Thursday through Sunday. Maybe I got a little cough, boss. I better go home for a couple of days so I don't get everyone sick. And you watch it, and then you go to the Masters.com app. You don't even have to leave the office. They are the standard without hesitation in growing the ability. And they've opened the doors. They've peeled back their curtain in recent years to say, you know what? Let's bring more people in from so many different ways.
I want to circle back to the equipment issue because I'm curious about how the equipment and its evolution, has it changed the Masters at all? Has it changed Augusta National? Have they had to make adjustments to account for the changes in the equipment? Because obviously the sport is different than it was 30 years ago.
That's a great point. And I will preface it by saying Augusta National, with all due respect, they do their own thing. They share information on a need-to-know basis, and they're kind of the ones that will let you know when you need to know. I hold them in the highest regard. They've been kind to me through the years, being a part of all their tournaments, the Augusta National Women's Amateur, the Latin-Am, etc. But back in the day when Tiger just tore through it in 1997 like nobody had seen, although Jack did it in the early 60s with subpar equipment, shall we say. There was always that, they're going to try to Tiger-proof the golf course. It wasn't necessarily a technology thing because no one hit it like Tiger hit it. But through the years, they will make some tweaks. Hey, we've created a new tee box that lengthens this hole 20 yards. We saw it at 13, the famous par 5 around the corner. It's now 20 or 30 yards longer. So they make these subtle, and they'll let everyone know in, Masters Week of this is a little different. This is a little different. But they do it in such an organic way that the players have always shared with me, until you actually play it, you wouldn't realize, that's 10 feet this way to bring a tree in, to maybe eliminate a driver off the tee. But they are so good at trying to stay in step with technology going at such a torrid pace. And to quickly button up that sentiment, I've always been in the Jack Nicklaus camp, and he said it decades ago, there's one way to stop it: slow down the golf ball. Stop the golf ball, bring it back a little bit, and then everyone won't be hitting a 340. But then you get into these multi-billion-dollar discussions with these companies. There's always been that talk of, maybe we'll take 10% of it off. And I've always maintained, and Augusta doesn't necessarily apply with how their golf course is, grow the rough, narrow the fairways, and make these guys have a premium on actually hitting it. This day and age, broad landscape of golf, they hit it as far as they want. It's all analytics driven, that you're better hitting a wedge out of the rough from 130 than an 8-iron from 160 out of the fairway. I'm not a big analytics guy, but that's what they say to go with.
That's very, very interesting. Now, I want to dig deeper on like who the favorites in the Masters would be, but you broached the subject of money, which you can't really talk about golf for very long without that coming up. Not just the changes in technology and equipment and all of that, but the changes in the tours themselves, and even that countries are now involved. It's not just, the people in North America putting up money and having a nice base tournament. Now it's a worldwide. In many ways, it's sort of broken up the world of golf. It certainly doesn't seem the same way that golf was when I was young.
No, 100%. I mean, it's the most common question I've gotten asked of myself in the last 4 years. What's going on with LIV Golf? And if someone's listening to us on this pod and wondering LIV, they probably know. But if not, a quick summary. 4 years ago, Greg Norman, a World Golf Hall of Famer, has always wanted to have an ancillary tour. Well, he got the Saudis to back it. And the Saudis have unlimited money, as we've seen 4 years in. They've dumped approximately $5 billion into LIV Golf, have poached a handful of quality players, major champions, the numbers anywhere between $10 and $500 million, somewhere in the middle. Usually the truth lies, just to join. And then they play for $20 million every week. They have their tournaments, about 14 of those a year. But the biggest part of this is the clear separation. All those people that went to LIV, John Rahm, a Masters champion, Bryson DeChambeau, multiple major champion, they can no longer play on the PGA Tour. And we could go into the weeds and talk about the Saudis. Who are they as people? Where's the money coming from? Are they sports washing? That's a whole narrative for another day. To me, everyone's entitled to their opinion. I do not begrudge any of those players for deciding to take a paycheck. Now, maybe they look back and be like, gosh, have I lost my possible chance to become historical in the golf world? Because unless they're exempt for major championships, which a handful are, you don't see them anymore. And everyone says, why can't we get the best 20 and 30 players in the world playing more often? And it's a long-standing headbutt of when are we going to get some type of resolution from the PIF, the Public Investment Fund of the Saudis, to now the PGA Tour has taken $1.5 billion of private equity. We're over it, talking about it. I'm happy to always answer the question, but I'm like, I don't see a resolution. If it hasn't happened yet, why will it? Do I hope we could see these guys more often together? But for a while, it's caused an enormous divide, I believe, for the casual golf fan. They're sick of hearing about the rich getting richer, complaining, whining. Hey, you know what? I'm not going to watch anymore. Now, luckily, in 2025, the ratings are showing. Maybe the fans are coming back a little more. Maybe they're just, if they want to stay at LIV, we'll see them in the majors and that's it. But it is by far the overriding topic everyone wants to know about. And I give them the same response. I know nothing. I don't see a resolution anytime soon. With President Trump in, they're now trying to maybe ramp up this. How can we make a merger happen? And I can make the argument either way, that they need each other, or you know what? They don't need each other. They've made their bed in it. And I'll button it up with this. Brooks Koepka, now a 5-time major champ. When he won 4 majors, shortly after, he tore up his knee pretty good. And there was a lot of, am I going to get healthy? Am I going to get 100%? And I vividly remember a conversation when I asked him about LIV. And he said, I am my own company. I started from nothing and I'm selling it at an all-time high. They happen to give me money that I might not make if my knee gives out in a year or 2 years or 3 years. He made a calculated business decision to say, I'm here. I'm NVIDIA 6 months ago. Can I get there? Or am I more likely to go down here And he said, it's purely a business decision. I think some people go over the top of, oh, Saudis, again, not the best people in the world. You might not have them at Thanksgiving dinner. But I don't begrudge them. I mean, who would turn down guaranteed money? Now, there's an offset. Your ability to play on the PGA Tour is gone. And I don't know if it will ever come back.
Well, I do say I know one golfer who would not just take the guaranteed money. His name is Steve Burkowski. You cannot be bought, my friend. I know you too well. So everybody else is walking away, dragging bags of money back to their cars. And Steve Burkowski is just giving us all the information, straightforward, like a great reporter that he is. So I'm sure they tried. I'm sure the Saudis came at you hard, but you fought.
Well, it's funny. They mustn't have my phone number because I never got the call.
All right, let's go back to the Masters tournament, this year's edition in 2025. Are there some obvious favorites? Do you feel like this course and the way it's set up, and all the other factors we've talked about in golf already, do you feel like there's a handful of golfers that are clear favorites?
Yeah, I mean, I think you start right at the top with Scottie Scheffler, a Masters champ. He has been on a 18 to 24 month run that rivals the dominance Tiger's had. And Scottie would be the first to tell you, I'm not Tiger-like, but the numbers have shown what he did last year, 7 victories, the green jacket. You're like, man, this kid is good. And I always get fired up because I've known Scottie since he's 14. So when I get to see the development of these young juniors into young men, into professional golfers, and now the number 1 ranked golfer in the world, I take a little professional pride in watching that evolution. So it always starts with Scottie. Now, the big thing with him, you go back to Christmas Eve, Christmas night dinner, he accidentally carved up his hand with some homemade ravioli that required surgery and stitches. And he didn't really get going till about February of this year. And while he's played well, he has not won. He has not had that same level of dominance we saw a year ago. So he tells us the hand is good. I believe Scottie when he says it, but maybe there's that slight uncertainty. So, if it's not with Scottie Scheffler, then it's the story that has been the last 10 years at the Masters. Rory McIlroy needs to win a green jacket to complete the career Grand Slam. Then you go on to the pantheon of the half dozen players that have ever accomplished that feat. Recall in 2011 when he was a kid making the turn second nine on Sunday, it was his to lose, and he lost it in emphatic style. Could not get to the finish line quick enough without giving it away. And he's won twice this year. He won at Pebble Beach. We saw him win the Players' Championship a couple weeks ago at Ponte Vedra Beach. He seems to be clicking on all cylinders, and he's very open and upfront of saying, the Masters is A1A for me. If I do that, then I've pretty much achieved everything else that I could have ever dreamed of. And here's a guy in his mid-30s. So I always think it starts with those two. You always look, if you want to go into the data, strokes gained, tee to green. Everyone breaks down these numbers. Whose ball striking is spot on that week? Hitting 14 greens around, hitting 9, 10 fairways. And oh, by the way, I believe you need to have the best short game in the world to get around the greens at Augusta National Golf Club. I could give you a variety of other names to look at. It starts with Scottie and Rory. I'll throw one more at you. Colin Morikawa, who leads the PGA Tour in strokes gained total in 2025. He had a chance last year. He's been trending nicely. He hasn't gotten through the finish line. That wouldn't be far-fetched to see that. And then one of those LIV golfers we talked about, keep an eye on Joaquin Niemann, somebody that seems to be under the scrutiny of the LIV discussion. He could be an off-the-board international player that might make some noise come the weekend at Augusta.
I want to flip the switch on you here, Mr. Burkowski, and go in a little bit of a different direction, staying with golf. But I'm interested to know how the golfers are, the professional golfers. I assume I don't know why I make this assumptions, but I assume that they are the easiest, or at least among the easiest athletes to deal with for sports media, no matter without regard to sport. But there have to be also some folks that are a little harder to get through to than others. So I'm not asking you to name names. I mean, we have dozens of professional golfers watching this podcast right now. I don't expect you to sell yourself out, but are there a handful of guys or more, or is it a 5% that I might think of people that despite all the money and all the success and the great job of walking the most beautiful golf course in the world, they're just in a bad mood all the time?
90% are good, maybe even 95%. There is a few outliers, and that would be a stretch to make it 10%, in my opinion. Does everyone have an off day? Sure. And one of the names I mentioned a short time ago didn't finish up a Florida tournament and walked by the entire media after Sunday was done and blew us off. I don't need to name names. Everything's been addressed. That was a one-off situation for that particular player, and you get it. You know, it's tough. There was a full board discussion our following week live from the Players Championship of, does this individual or any individual owe the media something or not? And there was a little back and forth between said person's press conference to said analysts on our desk of, I don't owe anyone anything. Well, actually you do. So it was banter. I think it's come and gone, but for the large part, they're gracious. They're giving of their time. And like any sport, pick your moments. Understand that if somebody did trip up or not get to the finish line, you might not get the best interview, but it's still incumbent upon me or whomever is in that position to try to elicit some type of response. Your podcast is fans first. My job, if I'm doing an interview that week, is what do the folks at home want to know? Why did it not work out? How can I elicit some type of context for good, bad, indifferent in terms of maybe that 18th hole or that back nine on a Sunday with the major championship? So it's intriguing. I've always maintained it's not the hardest thing to do, but the most challenging thing when you're asking those questions, because you can't throw them softballs, but you also have to respect the long-term relationship if you want that person to ever talk to you again.
Well, Steve, you've given me a lot of your time here, and I really appreciate it. I send one more question your way before we let you go here on Flip the Switch. And that is, if you surveyed all of the golfers and they would give you honest opinions, and you said, golf has decided that we've got one tournament too many. We've got to get rid of one tournament. What is the tournament that you think more golfers would say, it'd be fine if we cut that one, or I'd be fine if we cut that one? Is there one that stands out that the golfers, they go play it because it's money and it's a beautiful day and they're golfers? But is there one or two that the pro golfers don't really look forward to going to?
Wow, that's interesting. And my quick answer is no, because you'll get 10 different answers from 100 different players. Remember, they are independent contractors. So if they choose not to play, no one is forcing them to play. A broader answer to your question is the fall series. You know, for so long, golf was January in Hawaii, and they wrap up by football season. Make the fans miss the sport. The sport now goes 46, 48 weeks a year. So if you want the broad scope of it, most of the players will be like, take the fall off. Give us a break. Give everyone a break. But with now 6, 7, 8 fall events on the schedule, which most of the big names do not go to, because they're like, hey, we don't need the money, and I don't need to do this 32 weeks a year or 35 weeks a year. But it's not backtracking. When you're generating tens of millions of dollars of sponsorship money, it's never going to go away. But that would be the larger answer of wrap it up at the Tour Championship, take 3 months off, and make everyone clamor, when is golf coming back, as opposed to, oh gosh, they're back at it again this week.
That makes absolute perfect sense. That's a great answer. And I think you've answered the question without pointing any fingers at anybody. So you're really dancing around very nicely today.
You taught me well. You taught me well.
Yeah, you gave me some lessons as well. So we've shared a lot of great experiences over the years. Congratulations on all your success. Envious. I love seeing you on TV at the beautiful venues, and I know golf is in your heart and has been for your whole life. So I love your family too. So we wish you all the best. But thank you so much for your time. I hope we can lure you back on again sometime here on Fans First.
No, would always love to be a part of it. Best to Emmy and the girls. And let me say, for those that don't know, yeah, I wouldn't be here without you 30 years ago. You know, you get a lot of help along the way, and you were my first ever boss. And you always told me, be ready for the opportunity because you might only get it once. And 30 years later, I've maintained that work ethic, that thought when I'm doing play-by-play rate. Be ready, because you dropped the ball here, and I like to think I've done pretty well for 30 years, but there's 10 people behind me willing and ready to kick me in the knee and kick me out. So I owe a large part of my journey, the genesis of it, you imparting some wisdom that I still use to this day. So I appreciate it greatly.
Well, you're very kind. I appreciate that. And the only thing I would say is, hey, pay it forward. You know, there's somebody behind you waiting, and some are good kids and some are looking to split your throat. But when you spot a good one, help them out.
100%. I've been fortunate to guide a few people in the right direction, and it's nice to see when they reconnect and let me know how things are going. As you said, it's a feel-good situation, because whether it's this profession or any, you need a little help, a little guidance along the way. So I will continue to do that. I thank you for having me on, and welcome the next time we can connect.
I'll be looking forward to it, Steve. Great to see you, man.
Likewise. Thanks, Jim.
That's our special guest here on Fans First, Steve Burkowski, outstanding commentator, play-by-play man, great family man. Again, that goes right to the top of the list. And I know personally, having gotten to know his family over the years, that is the case. Thank you, Steve. We'll see you again soon. I'm sure we'll talk before long.
Sounds great. Thanks, Jim.
Hope you enjoyed our program today, and we certainly enjoyed bringing it to you. First time we've had a golf show, and so we went to the right guy. And I hope you get a lot of great information. Some of you that like to, do a little wagering around their golf tournaments probably picked out a couple of little cues in there from Berkey over the course of our conversations. His opinions are very credible. So if you're going to have to follow somebody, I would say he'd be at the top of the list. Thank you, Berkey.
You got it, buddy.
Well, we've reached one of my favorite points of every Fan First podcast, when it's time for Get Off My Lawn. This is the feature where we solicit your opinions. We get you to send in voice memos and videos and audio clips with your questions or your comments or your opinions. And if they're great, we ring the bell for you, because that's awesome. And if they're not so good and you need more work, you end up getting off our lawn. And that's where we are right now.
Hey, get off my lawn.
Hey, Barry from Birmingham here. I love your show, Jim, but we got to get real about something. The state of professional golf is really bad. The game is more lost, I'd say, than one of your tee shots. I mean, if not for Rory and Scheffler, the pro circuit would be almost indistinguishable from the old Hooters tour. Dietrich, Campbell, and Highsmith are a few names of winners on the PGA Tour this year. Meanwhile, stars like Spieth and Justin Thomas haven't won in, I would say, going on 3 years now. So you have star power dimming, and of course you have it divided, i.e. the LIV Tour, the land of shotgun starts and short pants. Does anybody ever discuss the return on investment for the Saudi prince? Geez, their ratings are lower than a tour of the Titanic. But I hear one LIV tournament had a sweet tea dunk tank, which is nice if we're going by the logic of Carl Spackler from Caddyshack. I'm just glad the king, Arnold Palmer, didn't live to see what has become of his once glorious game. Back to you, Jim.
We didn't start Fans First so we would be kicking fans off our lawn all the time. We just thought that was kind of a clever way of saying, go back and work a little harder on your opinion. You didn't nail it this time.
Get off my lawn.
Well, it's time for my 2025 predictions. So far, the Braves have played only a few innings of baseball, just a fraction of this very long season, and I don't know the Braves well enough to predict whether they will win the NL East or fall behind the Mets or Phillies. But I do know me well enough to predict with 100% accuracy the words I will be yelling at the field or at my TV set night after night. Like, Snit, are you the only guy at the ballpark who can see that Spencer is out of gas? Or this old favorite, Snit, you're bringing this guy in to face Ohtani? And another familiar refrain, wait, you're going to let Dylan Lee pitch to Harper? There's a base open. I'll also say darn near every night, Arcia, what are you swinging at? Or, Ozzy, this is a huge yard. We just need a single dude. You don't have to hit it 450 feet. And there will definitely be at least one game when I direct my attention to behind home plate and say, CV, my man. I mean, Angel Hernandez retired. Why can't you? But I predict my most frequent exclamation will be, ball game, Braves win. Chop on, y'all.
Well, when you hear that sound, you know what it means. That opinion was spot on. Thank you so much for your submission. We appreciate your contribution to our show. Thanks a lot. Well, thanks for joining us for today's episode of Fans First Sports Podcast. We really appreciate you being a part of our show. We especially appreciate it when you go and follow us on our socials. We're on all the different socials. We also have, of course, our YouTube channel, which we really appreciate when you stop by there. And don't forget about our Fans First website. Now, we're still building that out. It's going to get better and better, so don't give up on it. All of our previous episodes are available there. You can find all of them. And you can find me at jim@fansfirstpodcast.com. So you can send me an email directly if you'd like. Please keep your submissions for our Get Off My Lawn and Ring the Bell segments, within some reasons. We'll give you a little bit of latitude. But we're so glad you joined us for today's episode. Hope you enjoyed it as much as we did.
Stay tuned, stay passionate, and keep celebrating the sport you love. Visit us at fansfirstpodcast.com to explore more. Sign up for our newsletter to receive exclusive updates and follow the podcast on social media to join our growing community of sports enthusiasts. Your voice matters to us, so don't hesitate to share your thoughts and connect with fellow fans. See you next time.